Hi everybody, how's it going? Nice to have you here today. First off, can we just forgive my lashes? I just had to try these. These are the Salon Perfect Pre-Permed Push-Up Loose Curl Relaxed Lift. It says Lash Lift Effect. That's kind of the thing about these. So they say natural looking. They're big and they're glam. This side just feels like it's taking off into the stratosphere, but I kind of like them. I just felt like seeing myself glam again, you know? Okay, this is the palette tag. This was created by the brilliant Samantha March and Allie Glines, and it's just the ultimate video about palettes. It's kind of like a little survey, so there's all these questions to answer, like the newest and the oldest, and the worth the hype and the not worth the hype. And many of you reached out and said, you need to do that tag because you like palettes so much, and I just like palettes and makeup commentary. You know, I like talking about makeup. So I thought really hard over the last couple of days about the way I would answer these questions, because some of them I thought, oh, I've got multiple answers. And then I thought, no, that takes away the fun, so you've got to really narrow it down. You'll see with some of these it was hard to figure out. But the first question, let's just jump in, and I will have all of these categories listed below, so you can copy and paste them somewhere, and you can answer them in your YouTube video or blog post or down in the comments. Let's get going. First question, this was easy. This is the newest palette you have. That would be my Profusion Violets palette. I was talking about this about a week ago. That's when I got it on my Instagram stories, and I believe I saved what was going on there, but like I swatched it out. It's gorgeous. It swatches beautifully. I've worn it since then. I think it's so pretty. It really scratches that purple itch if you need something purple, and it comes in at just under $5. I think I typically talk about these 10 color palettes from Profusion as being like a $5 palette. I think it's technically $4.96 or $4.98 at Walmart. Just got it with my drive up order, and it is top-notch quality. The shadows you get, like, they're pretty generously sized, and there's some beautiful mattes in here. This matte lilac, that matte peachy color, and then there's just some stunning and kind of unique shades among the shimmers. This one called Whoa is like a champagne with lilac fleck type stuff going on. There is a little fallout with this, so be advised, mainly that shade, but overall everything's really smooth. It's really well balanced. You got a nice rich deep shade here to kind of anchor everything. I kind of like that it's not purple, because then your look doesn't all have to go back to that super purpley place every time. You know, you could keep it lighter with just lilac and then maybe the brown and the peach or whatever, but it can get very purpley if you start bringing in aubergine and blissful, that orchid color there. So really pretty. Was very happy with that purchase, and I just love these 10 color palettes from Profusion. We'll talk more about those in a bit. My oldest palette, I love how some people answer this question. I love watching these tags, by the way, and some people answer and it's something that, you know, maybe came out last year or the year before. Y'all, 2005. My sister gave me this as a Christmas present before I even knew what a Sephora was. I noticed 2005 was the date actually on this for the copyright. This is the Too Faced World Domination Tour All Access Backstage Beauty Collection. Probably the first palette type thing that I have, but it's actually like a little, I don't know, jewelry box, you know, music box looking thing. Look, here's your girl right up here, and then there's a crank. What about when you need it to stop because I need to talk? All right, we're just gonna hear this through. Okay. You're telling me you're gonna throw that away? Like, there wasn't any way I was gonna throw this away. It was my first like high-end kind of makeup gift, you know? The palette part lifts out of here, so you can take that out totally, lose the makeup, and you've got like a jewelry box. This is what the palette looks like. It's really nowhere near current Too Faced quality, I don't think. I remember trying to use some of these colors and being like, okay, where's the purple? But that was okay. I was just, for the sheer fact of having this, I was so excited about it. You love how I still have the clear protective sheet that went over that. And then, dear God, I still have the drawer with the lip palette underneath. I definitely use several of these quite a bit, but the palette will lift out and you can just keep the box. See, normal people would just keep the box and the makeup would be gone by now. Crazy people like me still have the contents. This was meaningful to me. You know, this was a gift and it really marked the start of me getting into makeup in a very serious way. Beyond just the drugstore stuff, and like, it opened my eyes to other things, and the packaging is so extravagant. And this kind of lives in my makeup closet. I got a special little place for it. It's kind of on display, and I'm glad I had a reason to pull this out again. So my battery ran out and I had forgotten to charge it after the last video, so I'm sitting here like, oh no. The next question is your most expensive palette, and for me, as far as I know, it would have to be the Viseart Grande Pro Volume 2. The pricing currently on Sephora is $175, and the Grande Pro 1 is priced at like $25 less. This is the one that is like all shimmer, but it's full of super unique, interesting shimmers. Really, really cool effects with some of them, different textures. They're not all the same. If you're into shimmery eyeshadow or you just want like a palette full of pops, it's super fun. And this is something that I'm like rediscovering through this tag video because I haven't used it near enough lately. I've really been on a matte eye thing most of the time these days, but this is gorgeous and I am wearing it today. I'm wearing like, gosh, I just splashed all over the thing. I went to this, I used some of this and this in my crease and that. So you can totally create a full eye look because there are some shades, like particularly this row, that have some shimmer, but once you blend them out, you don't see that so much. You just see the pigment of the color. I've got like some of this really, really dark forest green actually on the outside. So it's just fun to play with. I feel like I haven't been just letting myself play and pop into my really fun palettes enough lately. So it's beautiful. I remember gifting this to a couple of dear friends the year that this came out. I just think it's a super fun and interesting and unique palette. To be getting some things that are different in our current palette landscape, I think is important and saying something for sure. And then for most affordable, I would have to say the Profusion 10 color palettes because they're coming in at just under $5. It's like $4 and change. And then I wasn't sure how small to go with the consideration of palettes. What constitutes a palette? If it's 4 colors or 3 or 2, I'd call that a duo or a trio or a quad. I wouldn't really call it a palette. I mean, feel free to outline this however you want in your own video, it doesn't really matter. But I would look at things larger than a quad and then maybe say that qualifies as a palette. So for me, it would have to be these, and I do love these so much. I'm holding up the smoky one here. This is one of my absolute favorites. I've done several different looks, I think, on YouTube with this one. I also have the mattes and the classics, and then this was the next one I got because they came out with a new wave of shades recently. The violets, they have like rubies, there's a green one, there might be a mauve one too, but this was the one I could get my hands on most recently. But the smoky one is incredible. Love this so much. The mattes are so creamy and smooth. The shimmers are gorgeous as well. And there's always like a nice choice of colors in these, a nice balance, a really good selection that makes it very user-friendly every day. It's not one of those palettes that you open up and it's like, okay, everything is the same tone or the same depth level. Where do I go? You can really see the balance of light, medium, and dark in all of these, and you'll be shocked at the quality. If you've never tried one of these little Profusion palettes, you'll get them and it'd be like, what? So I really, really love those. For everyday palette, I kind of take that to mean like something that's just very wearable in pretty much any circumstance. Could just be a really easy to apply, go-to type of palette. And I think for myself and for a lot of people, it could be the Maybelline Nudes of New York. For me personally, like I'm jumping around a lot between palettes. I'm trying things for videos. I'm trying not to stay like lodged in one palette all the time just so I can branch out and use more of what I have. But if there was something very all-encompassing for every day, I would say it's this Nudes of New York palette from Maybelline. It's really like my favorite drugstore neutral palette. I really like how they've combined a variety of different tones here. You do have some cooler options. There's some warmth here as well, but then also the plum and burgundy is a really nice addition to this one. The mattes are great. The shimmers are great. It's a huge step up, as I said in a recent video, from the original like nudes palette that they put out way back when. I really really feel like the quality of this rivals high-end. I think you get use out of every part of this if you are a neutral shadow lover, so I really enjoy that. My most colorful palette, the one that I have that has the biggest color intensity, would have to be this Huda Neon palette, and it's the one with all these oranges in it and this like highlighter yellow shimmer. Everything is just so bold. It's really the boldest, brightest palette that I have. In terms of more of a color rainbow type spread, I still do have my Urban Decay Electric palette, but even looking at that side by side with this, the brights in here are just so bright. I did use this in a video. I feel like it had a moment in my collection, but it needs more. I guess we're approaching the season where one might tend to use more of these kinds of shades, or at least splashes of one or two of the shades. That might be more realistic to the way I'd wear it most of the time, but the quality of these shades is really amazing. They really can turn out as bold of a look as you would expect from just looking at the palette, so that would be my brightest thing. Next they ask, what is your smallest palette? I would have to say it's the Viseart Petite Pro. I do have several versions of this. The one I pulled out is just the first one. This is probably the one I've gotten the most use out of. I feel like it's just an easy travel go-to. It really is so small. They pack in 8 shades and there's a mirror in there, but the outer part just kind of wraps around, and then you have something that's like no bigger than a credit card, just a little bit thicker. But just around the outside, it's not that big. It is quite petite, and I love the different versions they have of this. This one, and then the 3, I believe it is. That's the one I picked out as being a great spring palette because it has that pop of like orchid and also green. It just kind of gives you that fresh nature vibe, but they've also come out with some brighter options as well in this same packaging. And also you do have the ability to pop these out, and if you have another palette, same size shadows, you could sort of customize it and make it your own. But it's so compact, so sweet. I love those. Now my largest palette, I know this is an eyeshadow focused video, but my biggest palette period that I have would have to be that Physicians Formula Butter palette. I'm not dragging it out right now, but I did a whole video on that. It's like over 2 feet of makeup, and it's every butter product that actually exists in there. So it's all the bronzers, all the blushes, the lip colors, the eyeshadows, just everything in the current line they packed into one palette. Put it out around the holidays. I thought that was a great idea, and there are other brands I'd love to see do that, you know, just like take what they currently make but put it out in a palette for the true enthusiasts of those products. CoverGirl Cheekers, anyone. I'd love to see more drugstore brands really take what they have and pop it into a palette, but that is by far the biggest. But for sheer amount of eyeshadows in something, I think it would have to be my Coastal Scents 252 palette. Yes, I've still held on to this because I kind of think it's the ultimate wardrobe of shades. My friend David has one of these as well, and we both discussed how it's kind of the perfect sampler option. If you're just trying to branch out, work with different colors, just have access to all different tones, it's really great because you're not getting too much of any one shade, but you're getting kind of like every shade. So you have these multiple layers. So there's one, you've got a ton of warmth, also your neutrals. This one with purples and yellows and greens and splashes of peach and also some browns down the middle. And then at the bottom, everything you could want in terms of blues and greens. And they're no bigger than the size of a dime, so you're not getting a lot of any one shadow, but you're getting a lot of shadows. So it really is the best way to experiment, I think. I don't believe this particular palette is still available on the Coastal Scents website. I'm not sure, I'll have to look into it. There may be versions of this that other brands have put out too, but as it says here, get creative. You can do about anything you want with that. And the quality is quite good. Best memory, I've got a couple things I need to mention here. First off, my Needs and Wants palettes with Makeup Revolution. I mean, to come up with the grouping of shades that were in here, to name everything, to just come up with the concepts, that was really amazing to me. This is my Needs palette. It was kind of a greatest hits of Makeup Revolution, so I put like all my favorite shadows that came from different existing palettes, and also face colors that came from different places. And it was kind of my version of the balms in the palm of your hand. You know what they did with that brand, I did with Revolution. And then this is my Beautiful Once palette, baby. I love everything in there so much. To me, just an amazing grouping of shades and a great color story in there, I think. But with that collab, I kind of felt like the example of a traditional collaboration subject, you know what I mean? Like, here I am, over 30 years old. I've got kids. I live in the rural Midwest, and yet I'm getting sought out to take part in something like this. And it was created right here, like in this room, you know? It just almost felt like a moment and an opportunity to show people, hey, you can create something, you can be part of something big that can come out in an Ulta store, that can sell out in an Ulta, and you don't have to fit any sort of mold to maybe get that opportunity. I never felt like I had to sell out to get that, you know what I mean? So obviously amazing memories tied to this, and I feel like it almost tied me to my audience even more, because just getting to take in your use of the product and seeing how you liked it, how you like to use it, connecting on that level was really cool to see, and just to take in all your creativity. It's just one of those unforgettable moments in life to be part of that. Another palette that holds a really good memory for me, I just really wanted a reason to talk about this, because does anybody remember the Smashbox Photo Op Mega palette? This is one of those things, like, I don't hold on to everything, but I hold on to things that really mean something to me. And I remember this 3-panel fold-out palette, like talking about it in the other house, and like this was something sold on QVC, and Smashbox came out with it, and I thought, oh, I don't know, it just looks kind of like a generic grouping of things, but it was actually like all of their photo op eyeshadows just put into one, plus blushes, plus highlights, plus liners, plus lip colors. I mean, it was just an ultimate palette. I got tons of use out of it. And it's kind of that concept of brands taking what they actually make, not just giving us a sea of limited edition, but putting known products into one handy space. Like, this was just an amazing thing to get. And I remembered using it so frequently and loving all of the different options. There's also a row of brow colors in there. It was just like the all-encompassing palette, and I loved having that. Worth the hype. I'm really thinking big picture with this, not just recent past, but the span of my time as a YouTuber. And I think the Urban Decay Naked palette was worth the hype. And I'm not just talking about like, oh, these shadows are incredible and they're what everyone needs and all that. You know, I think they're great. I've gotten lots of use out of this. But I think this palette was really responsible for starting something. You know, it started this nude palette movement. I remember when it was pretty much just this and Too Faced Natural Eye. And I definitely had a video like kind of comparing the two, because they were the two dogs in this nude palette fight at the start. But then it caused so many spin-off palettes from high-end brands. And then I would say this was really the catalyst for drugstore brands deciding that they should be making more palettes, period, right? There was a time when a large palette was just unheard of to find in the drugstore. You were only going to find the duos, trios, and quads, right? And then this comes out, and the drugstore kind of catches on to that and starts putting out their versions of neutral palettes. I think it elevated both high-end and drugstore brands. I think it's kind of sad that this version isn't still available, because I actually think it's really great, and it's probably one of the most versatile of any of the Naked palettes. I don't know, maybe they're just sitting back like for a big, you know, re-release on some sort of anniversary date or something, who knows. But the Naked palette is kind of like the queen bee palette, and I think any hype that it gets is deserved, because it was more than just a good palette. It caused many other brands to make good palettes. And I'm not just talking like copycat or dupe palettes, but just generally speaking, palettes became hot because of this. There, I said it. For the category of a palette not worth the hype, a lot of times when I see things overhyped, or I feel like people are pushing a certain product for some reason or whatever, I kind of get turned off. So there may be things that don't even make it here to me, that don't make it into my shopping cart for that reason. But sometimes I do give in, and one area where I feel like I've bought some products and I just didn't really see the hype behind them, I would say Charlotte Tilbury eye palettes in general and quads are kind of overrated and not worth the hype. Like, I've got this one here, for example. This is the Stars in Your Eyes palette. Is it good? Sure, but is it that unique? I don't feel like many of her palettes are very unique, and I also don't feel like there's many of the quads where it's like 100% of it is something I'd love to use. There might be 3 out of 4 nice smooth shadows, but then there's always one where I'm like, I just don't see myself using that, or I didn't like that as well. I think her instant look in a palette palettes that have like face colors in there as well. Those are pretty smart and pretty user-friendly, and I like those. But as far as eyeshadow stuff goes, like this is the biggest one that I have, and then I have a smaller one that I got through like a Nordstrom sale that I really regretted because the shades were just so common and could be found elsewhere. This, you know, I look at it, I like what's in here. I like the look of these tones, but the brand is super pricey, and I just, generally speaking, don't feel like it really measures up. Maybe I've got a little more expectation for uniqueness, or for those prices, I would like to think I get one and I love everything in it. And so far I haven't really had that experience with that brand. Not saying I never will, not saying I'm still not gonna use some of the things that I have, but it just doesn't impress me that much. Favorite palette from a favorite brand. One brand that I think just knocks it out of the park with many of their palettes is the Balm. They have great themes, they have great quality inside the palettes, the packaging is always cute, it's witty, it's smart. They're just a really great brand for palettes, and one of my favorites that they make is the In the Balm of Your Hand. The 1 and 2 are both great. The 2 is what you're gonna find available these days. I feel like I just talked about this recently with my ingenious packaging video, so not to get too redundant here, but they basically took popular iconic products that they make and they put them into a greatest hits palette. So you've got the actual blushes, you know, it's the same quality as all the original products, and they keep that outer packaging theme that's associated with each product on there. So it really, I think that's smart and really cute. And then they plucked different eyeshadows from popular palettes and put them in here as well. They don't over-release products. I think everything they make is very identifiable, so it's cool that they put that together in one kind of master greatest hits palette. Clearly, as I've noted with a couple of other things, that's something I like to see, is brands incorporating their everyday products into a palette, and it makes it more accessible. It's a very great like try me opportunity for these different brands, and I'd like to see more of that, but I think that's one of my favorite things the Balm has thought to do. And then the question is most used palette, and I kind of put this into a couple of subcategories. I wanted to say the most used palette currently, and also the most used of all time. Currently, my most used palette is the Sigma Cor de Rosa palette. I love this one so much. I think it's gorgeous. I've been wanting to reach for it all the time. I love the tones in here. I love the equal quality of mattes and shimmers, but you can do some really stunning all matte looks with this. I love the pops of berry, the warmth. It makes me think of the sunset sky this time of year. Like, it's just so fun, and it's fun to layer shades, watch one fade and transition into the next. You could do a very basic neutral look out of this without working in all the berries and pinks, but if you choose to do so, the looks are just gorgeous. Plus, there's a fantastic double-ended brush in here. I mean, it's a great palette. I'm loving it so much. It's been a palette that's sort of reinvigorated my desire to do eye looks lately, because some days when you're in a hurry, that's kind of the thing that falls off a little bit. I've really loved doing complexion stuff and getting into the glow of the skin and this and that, and then maybe my eye look is sort of the afterthought. That's kind of making my eye looks the exciting thing again. But if I had to say of all time, Lorac Pro 1, this palette, my goodness, I love this. This was just such a great concept when it came out, with the row of mattes, row of shimmers, and everything was really basic here, but to me it's all really key important shades. And everything, you know, Lorac's quality, very soft and pigmented, little goes a long way for sure, but every shade in here was important. Nothing was overlapping anything else. It was just like key stuff that was really necessary. A basic matte eye, sure. Eyebrow shades in there, absolutely. And then you've got colors like garnet and the deep purple that to me are kind of necessity shades in my life. I feel like I love to work with those kinds of tones. Also, beautiful true gold is in here. It's just a really basic, classic palette, super thin, really great for not taking up a lot of storage space. And I don't think I'll ever look at that and say, that's not an essential palette. I think it's so important. One person who suggested I do this video said I should add some categories to the end of the tag. So if anybody else wants to answer these either in the comments or when they do their own video, feel free. But I thought one fun category might be your best dupe palette. And for me, I think it's the Rimmel Spice Edition. This is a really affordable, like $6 palette, and I think it's even better than Urban Decay's Naked Heat, frankly. I've said this many times. You will be astounded if you've never tried any of these Magnifies palettes. They're not all created equal, but there are several that are really good, and one of them is the Spice Edition. The mattes in here are tremendous. The shimmers are beautiful as well. There's more of a plummy statement in this palette, and I think that's part of why I like it even better than Urban Decay's. But just to know that it's that good and it's that affordable, and even the applicator and brush in here, I've done whole looks just using what they give you, and it's great. I love that so much. And here's another question I'd like to pose. In doing this tag, what did you rediscover in your collection and that you want to get more use out of? I would say the Viseart Grande Pro palettes for me, that shimmer one that I showed, and I also have the matte version, and I just feel like I want to get more use out of those. Having looked at them, having reminded myself of the price tag on those, I'm like, yeah, I need to use those more. And then also my Lorac Unzipped palette. These shades, gosh, they maybe look kind of common in today's palette landscape, but remember when they came out and it was like, oh my gosh, the rose golds. It's like rose gold toned shadows and then everything that perfectly pairs with that look. The shade called Unbridled here is kind of the game changer because it's got that little bit of red, little bit of plum going on, and it looks absolutely outstanding as it semi-shears out, overlaps with these rose gold type tones. It's so beautiful, and I really haven't used that in the longest time, but I want to now. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you to Allie and Samantha for coming up with this because this is really fun. It's a fun way to look at your collection, kind of survey yourself. It makes you look through everything you have and really make some considerations and probably answer a lot of good questions for your viewers. So feel free to weigh in on any of these categories in the comments section, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.